It has been said that in crossing the country by way of hitchhiking, you meet all the odd crazies, all the people that have eccentricities that may not be so mainstream. Some might consider them to be uncouth. Some might consider them to be downright terrifying. But as it were, when a gentleman driving a pickup truck makes his way down a lonely desert road near a small city and sees a young woman standing there looking for a ride with a knapsack slung over her shoulder, he can't help but get involved. Can't help but pull over, and in the end can't help but find out that that was a big, big mistake. Currently inside the depths of a morgue that has been out of use for some decades. The old 70s Art Deco feel of the construction. An individual looks over a man with a very thick amount of packing within his mouth and a very tight bit of duct tape placed over it, bound by his arms and wrists with a very strong industrial-grade wire, tied down to a slab that at one time was used to take care of embalmings, removal of organs, preparing the dearly departed for their final showing before being laid to rest forever. We start our scene with Samanya Broome crouched over this individual, looking at his eyes as he looks at the smirking Nagaraja, teeth in full view, wondering what his thoughts are as he is almost certain that he's going to die.
I assume that Miss Broome has otherworldly servants around her, right?
Pardon?
I assume you have wraithly servants. Or slaves.
At the moment, she does have one retainer, so yes.
Alright. Well, whatever visage that this retainer has, you get a very, very familiar voice in your ear. One that simply says, be careful, please, please, be careful, be careful, be careful, be careful. There's another one, another one, another one, another one. Dead! Another dead thing coming.
The wraithly apparition, the retainer that Samanya keeps on them, keeps very closely tied to her, brings her attention to it, and brings her attention to another presence, something calling out of the darkness. And we will go ahead and roll for Sepulchre Path 1. Perception and awareness. Difficulty 5. Alright. 6 dice. And succeeds easily. Samanya will gently stroke the man's face. I'll be back. Don't you worry. and makes her way towards the sound of this disturbance.
Your wraithly servant stands there before you and sort of starts more floating backwards, not letting its feet touch the ground. This is a familiar visage that you know. This is one of the unfortunate motorcyclists. You see his head completely busted open, skull fragments and brain fragments plainly visible. You see his ripped up t-shirt and his leather jacket that did not do much when the collision hit his head. You see him start to float backwards. You can see that his arms are sort of crunched into himself as if the impact forced his forearms into his chest quite a bit as he just goes ahead and starts to float past these doors and on into the hallway, actually, towards the front entrance.
She'll look at the ghastly apparition. And she'll take a breath in, an unneeded one. And she'll follow it, telling her own ghastly apparition to remain behind and keep an eye on this lovely little morsel. And she does make her way up into the upper rooms of the morgue, spending uh, a few points of blood. I forget how many she can spend in a turn. Quite a few, actually. I think she can send 2. So she will spend 2 and buff her dexterity by 1 and her strength by, or actually her dexterity by 2.
Mm-hmm. Fair dues. Let's see, where are we going to go ahead and place this? This is a mortuary. Although the staff in their living days, interesting enough, when this whole building was in operation, there used to be quite a staff area. Very simple. There used to be a coffee cup. There used to be a refrigerator. There used to be friendly talk of a macabre and humorous sort. But all that there is left is bare cupboards. All there is left is the outlet to the main power grid. All that there is left is one solitary figure. One solitary figure who is pale, who is cold, who is frozen, motionless, and currently wears a bandana over his face.
The Canite kindred, whatever they would refer to themselves as, the oddity, the freak, stops and beholds this individual standing there. And she takes a few steps forward, her bare feet sort of patting against that broken tile underfoot. I didn't plan on having any visitors. I put nothing out.
Looking towards you, this figure will simply say, I doubt that you and I share the same sort of palate, but I did hear a ruckus here, so I came to look. And what do I find? Who do I find?
You come into my territory seeking answers. Perhaps you should turn that back around on yourself and divulge a little bit of information before you make demands, good sir.
I assume that the... Actually, I assume that while you're talking, the teeth are quite plain?
She usually keeps her head angled slightly downwards, so it's not easy to see her teeth.
Mm-hmm.
But we can make rolls if you want to on that.
Oh yes, I would love to.
Okay.
Awareness or alertness?
Oh,
Mostly
definitely
because...
alertness. Alertness.
Okay, fair enough.
I guess manipulation and subterfuge could kind of apply here.
Yep. Do you mind if I add my aspects to this?
You can use aspects to lower the difficulty, sure.
Let's say that because of the way you're doing this, you're increasing it by 2, and I can
Mm-hmm.
decrease it with my aspects.
Okay.
So I'll roll 5 dice, difficulty 5.
Boom. Alright, and I will roll my manipulation subterfuge. Well, let's see if Defender wins in this case. Hey, how about that?
How
How
about
about
that?
that?
How fucking about that?
That's beautiful.
It is. Alright. This lone figure will go ahead and look at you and simply say, I came in hearing the sounds of the world beyond, and I thought that I would see more denizens of the other side, the side of shadow, but all I see is some bloody bitch.
She smirks as she looks up at him with those very unsettling eyes, those black pools with red rings in the center. Hmm. Now you're just being rude.
They have a tendency to call myself a jackass. My name, a name that you can call me by, Jackson.
A name that I can call you by. Hmm. Yes, I don't know if that's good enough for me. Jackson. What's your current willpower?
Current willpower, 7.
7?
Mm-hmm.
Alright then. 7 it is. Alright. And that is, I think, manipulation and intimidation. Why it's not
Mm-hmm.
leadership, I'll never understand.
Dominate 1, right?
Dominate 1.
Intimidation.
Yeah. Still don't understand why it is that, but it is what it is. Okay, so that's 5 dice, and you said your difficulty would be 7, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Alright. So she simply says it, kneel. And then her commanding aura, her eyes just lock with yours. And what generation is he?
Lower than yours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, strange that. This kindred before you will go ahead and actually take a knee in front of you and just simply like, fuck. For one turn. 1, 2, 3.
She does make her way forward as he drops to a knee, and she'll behold him for a moment. She keeps her distance, sort of keeping a few objects between them, a bench that's maybe cast strewn, or a old circular table. Uh, but she looks him over, looking him up and down.
Mm-hmm. You'll notice that once you do that, this kindred will go ahead, or this canine, or whatever we're currently calling ourselves. I like that turn of phrase. Will go ahead and reach his hand into his vest. While I'm doing that, might do some aura perspective on this one.
Okay.
5 dice. Need to buy out that up. Nope. Your aura is currently impenetrable at the moment, but I'll go ahead and follow that up with a standard perception empathy roll, as I am wont to do.
Okay.
Two. 2 successes for the plain, mundane empathy.
You definitely get the sense that she's sizing you up. She's not necessarily looking to attack, though. Her posture doesn't seem to be primed to attack at the moment.
Okay. Morty, after a few seconds, will go ahead and stand up, looks towards this kindred and simply say, I don't suppose that's your truck outside.
And what if it is?
If it is, then you're far, far away from California.
Well, transient and all. Perhaps I didn't have the time to switch the plates.
It will do you better to go ahead and make sure to be localized. To make sure that people don't try to track you. I've been on the road more times than I can count, and more times than I've been covened in a city.
And that makes you an expert?
That makes me a survivor. You can see that seemingly behind this mask, there is a brief smile. The guys will go ahead and tell you more about that smile, but the bandana goes ahead and covers most of it. Let me ask you, what kind goes ahead and remains transient forever? What kind doesn't want someplace to just lay low and stay grounded?
The kind that finds rootless existence appealing for one reason or another.
Perhaps it is a kind that is not afraid of what's outside these city limits.
Are you trying to infer something, good sir?
I'm simply saying that you don't look like one of the locals. Locals here tend to be upstanding members of whatever the fuck controls the city.
Last I heard, somebody who had no business doing it. But perhaps things have changed.
Then what do you know of the city?
I know that I've seen a fair share of inepts. I've seen a fair share of far too humane individuals that don't embrace what they are. I see those that are incessant on interfering with other people's ways.
Interesting. Now, why do they cause you so much trouble? I walked in. I presented a letter. I walked away. They haven't called me since.
I walked in and was offered a hotel or an apartment, I forget which, but a place of my own to lay low for a while. And it seems that people just kept finding their way in without knocking. Apparently, everybody had a key to my domicile.
Well, that's a very, very unfortunate place to find yourself in a haven that's so easily broken into. I do hope that has changed.
Hmm. Where I remain rooted now seems to remain untouched. For now, at least, it does.
You go ahead and see that this kindred goes ahead and claps his ear for a second. They're noisy here. They're very noisy.
Out of character, was this something that could be perceived from the spirit world?
Yes, actually. Do.
You don't have to roll for this, but you'll see her react to the noise as well, as if her eyes shift slightly to the direction it came from before looking back at him.
Yes, actually. Actually, just beyond this particular staff room, there leads on to the plain maintenance closet. You've seen it. You've been here before. You know, there's quite a rowdy customer in there that just refuses to stay. It's apparently bound itself there for one reason or another. Despite your attempts to compel it, it will just not go away.
You'll have to excuse Joseph. He's rather boisterous when he wants to get free.
Joseph's better shut the fuck up.
Unaccustomed, I take it.
Very accustomed to accustom. 'Tis a talent that does not turn itself off.
I see. So you innately hear them.
Yes, I innately hear the dead. The restless dead. Ghosts, specters, spirits, wraiths. They're all around you.
Oh, I'm well aware. I wonder, do you have any pension for this, for controlling that gift? For calling it up when you need it?
I was taught. I was taught by my sire. A real glutton of a man. A real glutton of a Canite, actually. He absolutely refused, in many cases, to just be satisfied with his fill. No. No. Every so often, he would simply gather his supplicants together. One big, what he called a feast. What it translated into was simply limbs, toes, fingers, eyeballs, sometimes individually, sometimes the whole limb, going into his greedy, stuffy, bloated, puffy face. And they loved him for it.
Her hands sort of steeple together in front of her as she finally lifts her chin slightly and smiles from ear to ear.
You notice that Jackson will go ahead and reach behind his head to go ahead and let the bandana fall, revealing pointed, irregular teeth of the Nagaraja.
And here I was thinking that Monique and I were just simply the most unique individuals in this country.
Monique.
Yes, my sire.
Jackson will go ahead and start to drag the remnants of a coffee table, remnants of two folding chairs, unfold them, the rust having creaked it. It gives a very, very satisfying creak and squeak as they become unfolded. He goes ahead and offers you one seat while he goes ahead and takes another.
She'll walk over and sit down, crossing one leg up over the other. So, a recent embrace?
Not so. Decades. A name to call you by.
Sam.
Well, Sam, it's wonderful to meet another of the bloodline.
So tell me, of our number right now, do you know of any more of our kind in the region, let alone the country, the state?
In the region, you're the first I've seen. And if you cannot account for another one, neither can I. From the state, I know nothing. Most of my experiences with the bloodline comes from California. I assume that my sire went ahead and embraced another, but that is an assumption since I did not ask him directly. He just simply alluded to the fact over and over and over again that he could simply make more of me should he wish it.
These two others gave you a parting word. Mine decided to leave me behind for whatever reasons that she can drum up into her own head, which is tantamount to saying is who really knows. I'd heard that our numbers were strong in areas of India, the tropical parts and rural parts of Asia.
It would make sense. In those places, our diet would be less conspicuous.
True. And have you been making do with your consumption?
My sire went ahead and taught me a few tricks to wrangle the kind to myself and make them go ahead and provide me with sustenance. Started off small. Really has. I'm beginning by starving myself practically. Felines and canites have been mostly my diet.
Hmm. So dabbling in the forbidden fruit, then.
What do you mean by dabbling in the forbidden fruit?
Her expression becomes very sly indeed as she leans forward. Oh, wanton defiler, are we?
And you'll get a very, very confused expression on Jackson. Wong Tong? Excuse me?
How many times has a canite fallen under your purview as a meal?
A canite. No, you. God damn it.
Out of character, I thought that's what you said.
No. We'll go ahead and play along with it. Oh, god damn it. Not canite. Canine.
Ugh, and she shivers at that. Dogs. So, then you're currently unable to procure more substantial substance?
I am new to this city and have yet to set up the proper feeding grounds. I have yet to set up the proper feeding stock. So I am simply here half starving myself. But I have plans for this city. Big plans. You betcha, big plans. And he's actually pointing, two fingers to Miss Sammy over there and mimicking the of a gun going off.
Big plans. For the city. So one thing I've never heard of our kind ever setting down roots for obvious reasons. I've been blessed enough to be able to sustain myself on far less than what I knew Monique had to imbibe just to simply sate her hunger. But I'm wondering if you have the same, or at least if you can control your hunger, because I do think that if you were able to keep a lid on it, as it were, this little idea of yours might actually pan out.
That's the thing. You go ahead and take a book and take a page from my sire, and you simply don't hide it. You simply go ahead and make the kind love you and want to be devoured. That is the trick. That is the Golden Island.
I'm intrigued, I have to say. However, intrigued as I am, I wonder how long you can keep it going.
Last time was about 8 months before people got wise, and then we had to restart over.
And she sits back and sort of places her chin in between her fingers and rubs it slightly, contemplating. Tell me, do you still hold true to your human values?
How about this? You answer a few questions about, well, you try to lecture me about what you actually know about this city. I go ahead and tell you where my moral compass is.
Very well. What do you want to know?
I met many different kindred, and I overheard many different names that one of their Alicia bastards don't know to close their doors. I want to know about the prince.
When I had my head above ground, and I was walking outside of the grave. The prince that I encountered was I believe a Tremere. I'm not entirely sure. But that title had been thrust upon him because their original prince had simply left the city. I don't know if that is still an issue, if that is still a power structure. The last thing I can truly remember encountering was a Toreador by the name of Fortescue and her childer.
Interesting. I was directed to see a Miss Silverberg, actually.
I'm afraid that name bears no meaning for me.
That's disappointing. Tell me, do you know any of their primogen? Specifically, something about Eddie. And you can see that when he says Eddie, his teeth seem to clash a little bit, and the tone is a rather harsh one.
She could only chuckle in response. No, I'm afraid not. They were, well, the ones that I had encountered were very put off by what they saw when they just wandered willy-nilly into my home at the time. So I thought it might be best if I laid low for a while, and I've done so. For several months now, actually.
Right. Here's the thing, Sammy. While I'm here in this city, gone ahead and taken for myself my own little personal masquerade. And I really don't want to be found out as a fake. I think the forgery in the letter was fine enough, but for the sake of the bloodline, think I can keep a secret?
They have no idea what I am.
And they have no idea what I am either.
What are you masquerading as, if you don't mind me asking?
One of the rebel rousers, actually. One of this younger sect. You know how I told you I'm from California?
Yes.
They consider me a free anarch, and I want to keep that delusion.
Well, at the time when they knew me, I was an independent. The Artakis, I think they call us.
Tell me, which kindred did you encounter in your brief stint in the city before you had to go underground?
I met as I said, the Toreador, Miss Fortescue and her childer, though the childer's name now escapes me. I remember it was a rude individual that, well, ended my research and my bit of fun, as it was tied in a bathtub, very neatly maintained. There was another Toreador by the name of Robin, I believe, who I encountered. Small little thing. And someone she referred to as Crimson, who may have been kin to her.
Miss Robin? Miss Robin Silverberg.
I'm not sure if that was her name, her surname anyway.
Well, if you did meet such a toreador, I don't know whether you'd be impressed or not, but she seems to find herself on the prince's throne.
Oh, so she's in charge now.
Mm-hmm.
She's a naive little thing.
Oh, I can definitely believe that one. The other one that you mentioned, Crimson,
Yes.
he seems to hold some sort of establishment here. He regards himself, much as you, one of the independents. And he seems to have a very, very nice operation in this city.
I encountered his bookstore, and she does air quotes with that. An occult shop, I believe. A place where the goths after high school lets out make their way to, I'm sure.
Name of Hearth?
Possibly. It's been quite a while.
Hmm. Alright. So, what do you plan to make of this city?
I had no plans originally. It was simply a way station for me as I made my way west and hoped to find my way, well, if Monique's words were more than just tripe, which many of hers could be, I had hoped to get back to where our kind originated from, supposedly.
You think the Far East?
Possibly. But it's difficult to get there, and 18 plus hours in a, well, in a sunlight filled tube is not exactly appealing to me.
So your plans to move east, or at least make your travel towards the east, fell through, I'm going to assume. And now you're stuck here?
That would be an accurate description of things, yes.
Ah. I came here on purpose. You're kind of just hanging around. Fair dues.
It is what it is. Not necessarily proud or discouraged by it or ashamed of it. It's just where I happen to be.
I'll tell you this much. You couldn't have picked a more patchwork place. You're, or at least I should say we're, between two strongholds of the sect of the Sabbat. And we're one tiny pinprick that the Camarilla seem to claim.
Well, small operations are easier to get around in, I've found. And I've gone unnoticed for this amount of time. So I don't think they're exactly the most vigilant sect of Camarilla individuals that could be, well, that we could be contending with.
You notice that, Jackson actually holds his hand up to his forehead and he sort of groans, That was not something that I should have eaten. That was not something I should have eaten.
Something not going down well.
No, I keep thinking back to it. And the more I think about it, the more I think that the more I think that I'm gonna have to eat one of my retainers rather than what he brings me. And even that fills me with a sort of dread.
Suppose then you can answer my question. Perhaps you already have, but are you still on your... Are you still holding true to what you were as a human being, as a member of the kind?
If you're asking if one of these random nomadic packs hasn't already brainwashed me to their particular form of enlightenment, then I will have to tell you then, yes, I still cling to, as they keep shouting at me, humanity. But I'll tell you one thing, I will tell you one fucking thing, they will not drag me through the fucking ground and drag me with boat chains to their fucking bikes in order to give me enlightenment. That I will never do again.
Sounds like you have strong opinions on the matter, Mr. Jackson.
It's more of, I don't like to be played with. These random jackasses found me, overwhelmed me, tied me to the back of their family sedan, whatever the hell they were, and they just proceeded to drag my ass for about a mile. The road rash was absolutely terrible. It took me forever to heal that. And it kept screaming at me about how much time I was wasting or some nonsense like that.
And clearly these were not our own.
Nope.
Well, I'll leave it to you, but seeing as you're part of the blood, I see no harm in trying to teach you. If you wish it, I'm prescribed to a philosophy that allows me to get as close to death as I need to, and not fear the ramifications of what it means to indulge in our feeding needs.
At the moment, hunger takes me more than anything. Necessity and survival takes me more than anything. Your philosophy, I know nothing about.
It's called the path of death and soul. It's what many of our kind prescribe to out of academic pursuit or simple necessity. It is what I would recommend you get yourself into, Mr. Jackson, because you're going to go quite insane and fall to your more base nature if you're not careful. And I don't want to go into business per se with somebody that may end up losing themselves to the beast.
And here I sell enlightenment to the kind by the bundle. And you're offering to do it for me for free. And you can see that he's continuing to rub his forehead just a bit more rough than he should be. And you see that he will noticeably actually cut into his skin and draw back to the single layer of it. And just behind that cut, you will see a bit of ooze. The kindred vitae just appearing very, very briefly before returning back to the recesses of the, well, wherever Vitae seems to be held nowadays.
She raises a finger as he spoke and pauses as he sits there and rubs the sides of his head. Free? No. I'm not that altruistic. But an arrangement can be made that would be very beneficial to the both of us, without us both having to bend over backwards for one another.
Alright. Perhaps an arrangement can definitely be made.
Tell me, my good sir, when's the last time you've had a full belly?
When you mention the word full belly, you'll notice that Jackson's eyes go completely wide, and if he could salivate, well, actually, he can salivate. You notice that his mouth, his enlarged mouth, those pointed, irregular teeth, there is a bit of the red fuzz, red saliva that proceeds to peter out a little bit. If you were to assume, with any sort of knowledge, you'd realize that this particular vampire is almost in the throes of hunger.
She looks over her shoulder at the stairs that lead down to the actual, well, the working floor, as it might be called properly. She simply gestures over her shoulder. You can stay here for the night if you wish. Will help me deal with this truck. And in return, you can have what's downstairs all to yourself.
Jackson goes ahead and says, your offer for a haven is unnecessary, but I will definitely do away with the vehicle outside. Are you really promising me this?
I don't have to take much from an individual to find myself sated, as I said before. Plus, if I need to, I can find someone and command them to do my bidding. So yes, I am giving this to you. He's currently tied up in the basement. His mouth gagged, so he won't scream too much.
I'll go ahead and take the offer then.
Of course you will. You don't come off to me as a total fool.
The folding chairs will go ahead and give a little bit of a rattle as Jackson actually not jumps up, but maybe stands up a little bit too quickly, betraying what is obviously hunger.
And should lead him into the basement, where a man devoid of clothes, a man of well, a slightly muscular man, but one with a potbelly no less, something that you might see out in these parts rather commonly. Tattoos with crosses and American flags and bald eagles adorning his shoulders and arms. And she simply just gestures to him. Have at it, Jackson. Let me see what it is that you can do.
Mm-hmm. Without further too much ado, Jackson rushes, because he cannot stand to walk. He cannot stand to hesitate. patience is a virtue that he can no longer abide, as he goes ahead and actually will take the arm of this tattooed individual. There's actually a name. There's actually a fucking name on his forearm. That of Candy. Little heart shape and two dates. What can only be described as a 40-year span. Candy was somebody to him. Candy must have been some sort of loved one, perhaps lost in death, because you only tattoo yourself with names for people you truly love or people who are truly dead. And bearing the date, that was only 3 days ago. And Jackson simply says, "I'm so sorry for your loss. Don't worry, you'll see her soon." And he goes ahead and starts to unhinge his jaw and just go ahead and plant his fangs, his irregular teeth, all over that tattoo, that heart-shaped tattoo, and rip it away. Rip skin, muscle, and you can even hear the crack of a bone go ahead and hitch across one of Jackson's irregular teeth. I'm pretty sure at this time the unfortunate jackass is screaming, screaming, screaming into that padded gag. And Jackson won't stop. After the first bite, he'll go again for the next one. He'll go ahead and actually take a little bit of his own regained vitae from the flesh and pump it into his strength to go ahead and proceed to break that bone and rip it out, consuming from the nub that's been produced into his mouth over again. He does it right in front of the poor bastard, watching as his fingers slowly get dissolved and devoured in front of him. He's screaming, he's getting a little bit weaker, and Jackson looks over to him and sort of mimics that pained expression, that silent pleading. Don't worry, you'll see Candy again. You'll see her again. As Jackson goes ahead and launches right into his throat, collapsing the windpipe just with the force of his strength, and then ripping out his throat in one fell swoop. Screaming will stop. The man is truly dead at this moment. And
And I do
Jackson...
believe you need to make a conscience roll.
No, yeah. Where are you? There you go. Motherfucker. Go ahead and describe the internal struggle within Jackson.
Oh, okay. I can describe it, sure. That aforementioned humanity that Jackson holds on to, that he clings to, perhaps unwillingly. Perhaps it's wrapped around him like the root of a tree that's invaded a sewer pipe and thus caused problems for the family living within. It eats away at him. It tells him deep down that this is wrong, and even though the beast has control of him, in part at least, driving him to cause this hunger, to satisfy it, to bring it to an end, there's still a part of him that overrides that bestial nature, that feral nature. And it says, Jackson, you know this is wrong. Jackson, why are you doing this? You should be ashamed of yourself. Everything within you tells you that he should be ashamed. Everything that once stood for good or at least moral behavior now claws at you and rips at your very heartstrings.
Very well. You notice that Jackson, after that display, after mocking this poor jackass, goes rather silent and then just proceeds to almost surgically, if you have the equipment on hand, proceed to dismember this individual and consume and feed and satisfy his own dark hunger.
Samanya nods in approval, looking at him go. As she walks around the table, looking at the blood and the mess of gore, which will be cleaned within short order, one way or the other. And she simply looks at him. Well then, was that good for you?
Jax cannot truly bring himself to meet Sammy's gaze until he is well enough satisfied, the beast driving him on to finish the meal because it is necessary, because that is the only thing that will sedate the rage inside. Flesh, flesh, meat, bone. After he is sedated as much as he can, after he recontrols himself, he goes ahead and looks back up to Samantha and simply says, I am glad to be full.
Well then, Jackson, clean up the mess you've made here and then deal with that truck.
Looks like I'm going to be talking to the manager, or I should say the janitor in the maintenance closet. I suppose that's where the bleach is.
It's probably close to 70 years old, but I don't think it goes bad.
Give me 30 minutes here. This will be cleaned, and then I'll be away.
She'll allow him to leave, saying nothing. And simply turn to her retainer. Well then, that was interesting, wasn't it? And I think there we can end our scene.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a plan.